The following program has been pre-recorded, so please don't call in at this time. If you wish to participate in the program, tune in at 5 p.m. every Wednesday for A Pause for Thought on Baton Rouge Community Radio. Good evening, fellow humans. This is Wayne Parker with A Pause for Thought on Baton Rouge Community Radio, Baton Rouge Community Radio's only live call-in show so far. We're hoping to have more. And yes, you can call in. The number is 343-9927, 343-9927 if you are live streaming at whyr.org. Just dial the area code if you're that far away. Anyway, the only rule for calling in on this show is that you state your point as an opinion or a suggestion and in a respectful manner. Anyone who tries to turn this into a rant show will be made to, let's say, go away. And as the title of the show implies, I want this to be a thoughtful forum for thoughtful people. And with me tonight are two of my regular co-hosts, Jim Brolin. Jim, good evening.
Good evening, Wayne.
And Kendall Losey.
Good evening.
How you doing, Kendall? Okay, and our topic for tonight, we were discussing before we went on the air. I probably should clarify a bit, but the question is, has more participation in democracy at the federal level been a good thing or a bad thing? And what I'm driving at is the way our system was originally set up. The House of Representatives was popularly elected by the people in their state or districts. The Senate was appointed by state legislatures, and the president was elected by each state electing a single group of electors based on their representation. And then those electors, just a few men from each state, would meet together and decide on who to vote on. And they were supposed to be chosen for that task at the time of the election to avoid any corruption or influence from ahead of time. And, of course, as I think we all know now, the Senate is elected by popular vote. The House is elected by popular vote. And basically, with the way the Electoral College works in all 50 states now, the president in each state, anyway, is elected by popular vote. And so that's what I mean by more participation. Is that being a good thing or a bad thing? Anybody?
I can't say it's good because there's a lot of problems with it. The president, you just mentioned, is elected by electors by the states. But some states, if somebody wins that state, they get all the electors.
Well, I think that's the way.
In other states, it splits the electors. Like in some states, if the Republican gets 50% of the vote and the Democrat gets 50% of the vote, the electors are split. And this makes for an interesting problem when you're running for president. Usually you try to get all the 100% states. The one, if you get 51% of the majority, you get them all. And you kind of neglect the other states unless they're an easy win. So that just modifies that.
Are you sure they do split them up?
Yes.
In Nebraska, I'm pretty sure it goes by congressional district, and whoever gets each congressional district gets one vote plus the 2 votes.
Oh yeah, no, that's how it is.
state.
That's how it is in every state. Yes.
Well,
but Jim's saying that
no, if you win one congressional district in the state, you get 1 vote. So if the Democrat wins 1 and the Republican win 2, then the Republican will get the 2 there, and then the Democrat would get the 1 congressional district, and whoever wins the state overall gets the 2 Senate seats if there's 5 electoral college votes for that state. I think that's the case for Nebraska and Maine, if I'm not mistaken.
No, the way I understood how it worked, and it does, and I believe it works this way here in Louisiana. When you vote, you're not really voting for the candidate whose name is on the ballot. You're voting for your party's electors. Each party who has candidates on the ballot has electors, And I was under the impression that every state now is required by law to, if whatever candidate wins the popular vote, all of their electoral votes for his party are required by law to vote for him. And so, but that's not it. You're telling me no, huh? Well, that might have been back when I was reading right-wing literature, and I've learned not to trust that. I learned that a long time ago, actually. You shouldn't trust any propaganda, left or right-wing. You need to look for stuff that's balanced. And but anyway, but still, we have the general public's input was still occurring there, right? It's still the typical average person that is voting for the president, right?
Right.
And is that necessarily a good thing?
Well, just watching this campaign party elections, it's not necessarily. It appears people are just looking for some sort of a hero instead of somebody to be an executive, head of the military, head of the government. People are making really interesting choices. Obviously, if you just turn on the news any day, the Republican leader, the Democratic is pretty competitive, but the Republican leader, I can say his name, I guess here.
Sure.
Trump is making outlandish statements.
To you,
He's never really, well, if he's going to build a bridge or build a wall, make the Mexicans pay for it, I don't know if that is a reasonable statement. If he's going to deny entry to all Arabs,
yeah,
Muslims,
my point was going to be that everybody has somebody they hate in this race,
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, but here again, Kendall, do you have anything to say on that?
Well, I mean, he said that people are looking for a hero, but isn't that how it is for all presidential elections? I mean, Barack Obama, our current president, I mean, he was elected under the promise of hope and change. And
Yes, and he was an outsider, all that other stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, but I think it's been that way for our lifetimes. I mean, since we've all been alive. This was all changed back in 1913 is when the Senate went from being appointed to elected by popular vote, and then somewhere along the line, gradually the electoral college system was perverted. They still adhere to it by the letter, but in the spirit, it's shot.
Also creates the problem that a president can be elected with a minority vote. Al Gore, even after Florida, got more votes than Bush did, but Bush got more electoral votes, and that can happen with this system. I don't know if that's bad though.
Not
one man, one vote. Yeah, but everything. I don't know.
Well, one of the things. One of the advantages I see with the Electoral College, and if I can find the quote here, I'll share it with you. It was also mentioned by one of the men who was involved in writing our Constitution. But if each state elects... Well, let me step back a little bit. How long does a typical campaign season last right now? About 2 years?
2 years.
Okay, 2 years.
3/4.
Okay, it's all done on television mostly, traveling around, of course, but it's all done on television. That costs a lot of money, okay? Because these candidates are trying to reach masses of people, okay? Now, let's say that, just to pick a number, okay, there's 500 total electors, okay, combined. Each state picks its own group based upon its representation, just like it was originally supposed to be. One group of men, okay, or women, with one group of voters. So you got it narrowed down now to 500. The states that have only a few electors could combine, rent a convention hall, and have each candidate come and talk to them, and they could spend a week or two with them and do all kinds of different things. They could take them fishing. They could play a ball game and see how they discover their true character. Whereas now it's 2 years of basically a carnival in the media, and it brings in huge bunches of money. Whereas with just a small group of electors in each state, it would cost hotel, food, and travel for the candidates, and whatever it costs to rent the convention hall or whatever. It'd be a whole lot less money, a whole lot easier, and the people who are actually voting for the president will then actually know the guy and know who it is or the woman. Got to be careful of my chauvinism there, but
I think that's the way it's supposed to work. In Louisiana, we vote for electors.
but we vote the day. Yes, we do. We vote for electors, but each party has its own set of electors.
Right.
So,
Right.
You're not really getting that kind of examination. It's still the public pageant that chooses these electors, which results in the candidates being elected. It's still just this mass appeal. And during the original, I read Madison's notes on the original Constitutional Convention, and he said they just didn't think it would be possible for the candidates to reach the masses on any meaningful level. And that's why they thought it better for each state to elect representatives. Let me give a quick
But
plug
those-
here. I want to remind everybody you're listening to A Pause for Thought on Baton Rouge Community Radio. This is Wayne Parker. Our topic for tonight is has more participation in democracy at the federal level been a good thing or a bad thing? And if you'd like to call in, you can call 343-9927, 343-9927 with the area code of 225 if you need it. Jim, you were going to say something?
You have to remember that those people voting were only white males in the original Constitution, white males and property owners. That's a very select group of people.
Okay, but still, even if we allowed everybody to participate in electing the House of Representatives, okay, there you have the representation of the masses there, okay? In the Senate, the people in each state elect their legislature, so the people still have a say in who goes to their state legislature. Then the state legislature will select who is going to be their senator. And I don't have time to go into the whole thing, but there is actually a way that each state could create a pool of electors well in advance, starting at the precinct level. I mean, everybody knows somebody they think is pretty smart, So each precinct could choose someone they think would be really good. Then they go to the next level, like I don't know if it's section or whatever, but the next level up, and then get as high as the parish. And then you'll have each parish with their own electors that they like, and they'll meet together in each district, and those guys will all vote amongst each other, with each other to decide which one of them will go higher. And so at every point in the process, everybody is voting for somebody they know and have spent some time with.
There'll be no parties then in this?
Well, there was never
No
intended to be.
political parties?
Yeah, it was never. We were never supposed to be a two-party system, as we're often called. That evolved or degenerated, however you want to look at it.
Well, then who would bring these people together to choose electors?
Well, the same people that run our polling places now and things like that. We would have elections the same as always, but it would be down on a small level first. And of course, this could be done maybe every 5 years or whatever. We could have just this pool of electors, and people would get to participate that way. Kendall?
Well, I have to say I highly disagree with it, with that proposal.
Good.
Because I feel like in a democracy, it's supposed to be a government of the people, and I believe that it should be a government of all the people, and that every office that we elect for somebody should be directly elected by the people, and not by people who we choose that they will promise to appoint somebody to be in that office. That's why I highly disagree with the electoral college system now. And I think that, the president should be elected by the popular vote, because I think, as a democracy, we should be, all of us who should be involved in it and each have an equal say.
Okay, and actually the founders discussed that directly during the Constitutional Convention. They weighed the pros and cons of having everyone vote for everything. And of course, they still were talking about rich white men, is true, but still, if we made it totally fair and had universal suffrage and we had what you're talking about, it would be a broader, scope of people. But let me bounce this off you here, Kendall. This is James Wilson, and this was from Madison's notes on the original Constitutional Convention. He was from Pennsylvania, and he stated that despotism comes on mankind in different shapes, sometimes in an executive, sometimes in a military one. Is there no danger of a legislative despotism? Theory and practice both proclaim it. If the legislative authority be not restrained, there can be neither liberty nor stability, and it can only be restrained by dividing it within itself into distinct and independent branches. In a single house, there is no check but the inadequate one of the virtue and good sense of those who compose it. Now, granted, I went off there. We're not talking about the president, but there's an example of what I think is a compelling argument for dividing, having different segments of the population involved in electing the federal government. Like Madison, I think it was Madison. Hang on a second here. Jefferson, in his notes on the state of Virginia, he criticized that state's legislature because both houses were elected by the same people. Okay, which is kind of what you're getting after, right? And this is what he had to say with that. The Senate is, by its constitution, too homogeneous with the House of Delegates, House of Representatives at the federal level, being chosen by the same electors at the same time and out of the same subjects. The choice falls, of course, on men of the same description. The purpose of establishing different houses of legislation is to introduce the influence of different interests or different principles. And so, what do you got to say?
Isn't that why we have different term limits for the two houses? We have a Senate, which it gets cycled out every 6 years. I mean, over a period of, a third every 2 years. And then you've got the House of Representatives that they have a 2-year term. So
actually, the reason the Senate was given longer terms, I believe, is because they were expected to be more intelligent and more restrained in their judgments. In fact, Jefferson called attention to, and let me see if I have it here. He mentioned, he compared them to, oh, come on now. Well, we got a call here. We'll take that first, and that'll get me off the hook while I find this here. Good evening. You're on the air with a pause for thought. May I know who's calling, please? I guess they're not here. I don't know what happened to them, but they're not there. Okay, I was talking about Jefferson. I remember where it was now. And it was... Okay. Madison. Yes, the Athenian Republic. James Madison was referring to the Athenian Republic with the Greeks. They were the first ones to have democracy. And let's see, I'll pick up where the quote is. So there are particular moments in public affairs when the people, stimulated by some irregular passion or some illicit advantage, or misled by the artful misrepresentations of interested men, may call for measures which they themselves will afterwards be the most ready to lament and condemn. In these critical moments, how salutary will be the interference of some temperate and respectable body of citizens in order to check the misguided career and to suspend the blow meditated by the people against themselves until reason, justice, and truth can regain their authority over the public mind. Okay, so, and that was the whole idea with a Senate that was removed from the popular passions and had a longer term, because they would be a restraining force against them, against the masses.
Yes. Okay. I see that.
Buy that. Okay.
But also, I think that the way it's set up now, I think that we do have the what was it? The irregular passions. You
Yes,
said?
we certainly do.
We do have that, and that happens. Usually, very very often actually, and in fact, every year you see a different issue come to life, and you know. But I think it's the responsibility of the people to stay informed and get to the vote, go out and vote every 2 years
How
when
would
we have
people?
this.
Okay, and then Jim and I talked a little bit about this before the show. How do most Americans spend the majority of their time? Working?
Yes.
Where would we go to get good, in-depth information on things that are important for choosing candidates?
I think you have to go back to some sort of a party system. You have a whole lot of ideas on what should be done, what needs to be done, personal ideas and theoretical ideas. And if everybody that runs for president just stands for his own ideas, it'd be very hard to select a president. So we're stuck with a party which embodies supposedly certain concepts and how they'll go. Without that, I'd have a hard time seeing how the system would work. I know people don't like parties necessarily, but in the end, I think there are 7 that state of Louisiana recognizes can be put on the ballot. But otherwise, where can we, with all these ideas floating around, all these personalities and all these solutions, how are we going to funnel that into a president? One man, one woman.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well, and really, if you think about the primary system, that's been perverted as well. It wasn't too long ago that party conventions were closed, and the delegates that each district sent to the convention would then select the candidates that they wanted, that most represented that party's principles. And the way it works now is that we have all these candidates from each party running around the country, relying on money from who knows, who. And whoever wins the popular vote in the primary is automatically the candidate for that party. And I think that's got a lot of people in both parties uncomfortable right now.
Well, the Republicans are really worried about that because if nobody gets a majority of the electors, then
Well, we're
the
talking the
electors
primary
get
now.
freed up.
We're talking about the primary now.
Yeah,
Is what I was
primary.
talking about.
Okay.
So they haven't. So it's still. Well, it's going to be an open. I think we're all open primaries now. I don't know. Some states are maybe closed, but
This is a closed primary
Yes,
state.
No,
this
federal have to be closed. You have to be registered Democrat to vote in.
for here in Louisiana. Yeah.
Well, no, that's a federal law.
No.
Louisiana has an open primary,
In state elections, yes.
In state, yeah, but not for federal.
but not for federal. It's closed.
Okay. Well,
For
that's-
instance, just want to show you that on March 5th, we're going to vote again in the primary.
right.
And for president, there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 people, including Steve Burke, Hillary Clinton, Rourke De La Fuente, Henry Hawes, Keith Judge, Martin O'Malley, Bernie Sanders, Michael Steinberg, Willie Wilson, and John Wolfe. Now,
That's in the
most
Democrats,
voters, Democrats, will come in to see the ballot for their first time. And who are these guys?
That happened to
Keith
me.
Judd, Henry
Yeah.
Hughes.
That happened to me.
And then, if you're a Democrat, you have to vote for your state central committee representative. And then another vote you have is for the Democratic Party Executive Committee, and there are 20 people here, and you're supposed to pick 5. And I know personally, never heard of any of them.
Yes.
So, what kind of free vote, free election is that? Even now, when you walk in.
Well, that's
In the general election, you have to pick your judge.
Right.
You have to pick your city councilman. You
Yeah.
have to pick your representative, you have to pick your state treasurer. And how do you do that if you don't go by party or something?
Yeah, or actually
Other.
take the time off from work, or spend your evenings doing other things besides fixing your house, cooking supper, and whatnot, to go meet with the candidates to get to know them, right?
Right.
So, Kendall, you were going to say something?
Well, like he was saying, like the state central committee and the parish executive committee, those are usually just for party setting the party platforms for that particular area, the parish or the state, and making the endorsements. They vote on the endorsements for different candidates for that party. But I get going on to, I think it's the responsibility of the people, though. If you want to make a right decision, you have to make an informed one, and you have to work to make a informed decision. You have to research these candidates. Otherwise, you just go in there and you just select. Oh, I'll select Hillary Clinton because that's who I know. That doesn't give people like, the lesser known candidates, a chance to get their message out. But you have to. And we live in a time now that you can actually go out there and go online, or go to a presidential candidate's speech and hear what they have to say. And it's easier now to know when those things are happening, or how easier to access the information that we need to do to make an informed decision. So that's why I think that now we should move towards a one person, one vote thing.
Okay, well, that's for learning about the candidates themselves, but what about all the other things the candidates are going to have to deal with? I mean, how well educated are we on those things? Foreign policy, for instance. How much of what goes on around the world under the authority of the American taxpayer are we even aware of? By the way, you're listening to a Pause for Thought. We've got about 3 minutes left. If you'd like to call in, the number's 343-9927, 343-9927, if you'd like to call in and make a quick comment there. Jim, you were going to say something?
Oh, I want to. I don't have time, though, but I found one of the interesting things, if you want to find what your party is, what the parties are doing, how they're really voting, is the newspaper publishes the tally called How They Voted. And they put it in the paper,
right?
Anything that came up. And I was going to, if I don't have time, but very quickly, these were votes on environmental issues. We have in Congress 2 senators and 6 representatives, 1 Democrat, 5 or 7 Republicans. They exactly voted against every one of them. Every Republican voted against the environmental bill. 1 Democrat voted for. The point I'm making is that if you're an environmentalist, reading this sort of thing might give you a hint that the Democrats are more likely to support environmental programs.
And that, of course, depends upon which district they're in, too. And that also reminds me of one of the benefits cited for making this Senate appointed. They believed that the founders at the federal level believed that it would place the rich in direct competition with the common, so that neither side could predominate. And now with full general elections, I think it's safe to say the wealthy have pretty much co-opted the entire show.
Right.
Because they can afford. They're the ones. Lots of money is required to get elected, for television campaigns. And so they have to rely on wealthy donors, who then demand something in return for their money. And like I said, we're not going to solve the problem. We're certainly not going to go back to the original system. And I'd be willing to try anything, Kendall. Frankly, one man, one vote, or one person, one vote. What the heck,
All right.
But I just wondered. Like I said, I think a lot of people don't realize just how far off we are. These Tea Partiers and others that claim to go back to the original Constitution, I don't think most of them even know what they're talking about. Well, in fact, I know most of them don't know what they're talking about because I've tried to talk to them, and they're pulling stuff out of the air, really.
Right.
I like Mr. Trump's statement, "Make America great again." He's saying it must be a pretty lousy place now.
Yeah. Okay, we got to go. This has been Wayne Parker with A Pulse for Thought with Jim Brolin and Kendall O.C. We'll see you later.